In today's video, I am testing Resincrete and Jasmonite to make these beautiful terrazzo tea light holders. Let's see how the results come out. So I'm using this Yin Yang tea light mould. I quite like this mould. I will link it in the description below. And the first attempt I'm going to do is with Resincrete. So I'm going to use one side of the mould for that, and the other one I'm going to keep aside for the Jasmonite. So Resincrete is a 10:3 ratio. So I have taken 100 grams of the powder, and this product you just mix in with water. So I'm going to add in 30 grams of water and give it a nice mix. I have decided to keep this project white, so the base is going to be white. I'm not adding any color to it at the moment. So I have worked with both Resincrete and Jasmonite separately, and the more I have used Resincrete, I have shifted to using it more than Jasmonite, just because I find it easier to use. It's a lot thinner than Jasmonite. It has a slightly longer working time. So for those reasons, I have switched to Resincrete, but I did want to do this test of a project to do the two side by side, so I could do a comparison of how the finished product turns out. So now I have given this a good mix. There aren't any lumps that I can see, and I am happy with the consistency. It seems smooth. And what I'm going to do is take a tiny amount into another cup, and I'm going to add these little candy shells. These are from Just For You online, and I will link these along with the discount code in the description as well. So for the purpose of making these like for like, I have taken 1 spoon, I have measured out of these shells, and I'm putting in a tiny amount of Resincrete, and I'm going to give that a mix and lay this down first into my mold. And that's how you do when you're making a terrazzo, just so that you're not wasting your chips throughout the mold, because you just need them to be on the surface. And I'm going to place these down along my mold, and then I'm going to fill up the rest with the rest of the Resincrete. Now I'm going to leave this to cure for about 35 minutes. That's how long I like to leave my Resincrete, which is why I did this first, because Jasmonite usually only needs about 20 to 25 minutes to cure. So now that this is done, we can move on to the next piece. I'm just going to give this a little shimmy. Usually I don't have to do this with Resincrete, but I thought I'll give it a little shim and move that slightly to the side so we can carry on with the Jasmonite. So the Jasmonite I'm using is AC100, and I have taken 100 grams of the powder, and I'm going to add 40 grams of the base liquid. So I'm going to give this a good mix, and the obvious things that I can notice in comparison to Resincrete, which is on the side, is the color difference. So Jasmonite is slightly on the off-white side, like it's slightly warmer white, whereas Resincrete is pretty white. Not that I'm bothered with that fact, to be honest. I don't mind the natural color of either of these. And the other difference instantly that I can see, obviously, is Jasmonite is a lot thicker. And for that reason, I have taken that a little bit longer to mix it together, just to make sure I don't have any lumps and bumps in it. So again, I'm going to take 1 spoonful of these shells and pop them in, and put in a tiny amount of Jasmonite to do the same thing as I did with the Resincrete. Now, because Jasmonite is thicker, it's not flowing into the little corner area as easily as Resincrete did, so I am going to have to give it a little nudge to make sure it goes into that little narrow corner space. And I'm just going to pour in the rest, and once again give it a good shake, a good shimmy. I even lift it up and smack it a few times just to make sure I don't get any air bubbles. And again, this is because Jasmonite is thicker, and I want to make sure that there's no trap bubbles in there. So yeah, and then I'm going to leave these to cure and be back in about 25 minutes for the unmolding. So we are back for the unmolding. I start with Resincrete at first. I am gently pulling away the mold from the sides, and comes out pretty easily. I am trying to be careful here, especially off the bottom corner, because that's a narrow bit, so I want to make sure I don't snap that while unmolding. And there it is out. No air bubbles, happy with the finish. We are obviously going to be sanding the two of these, but that's that. Now for the unmolding of the Jesmonite. Once again, being careful and just slightly pulling away from the edges of the mold. And I noticed that as I'm doing this, I have possibly snapped a bit of the corner, which I was actually worried about. It's that end bit there that I have broken. But yeah, we'll see how it looks on the front side. Now, because that snapped on me, I am being even more careful unmolding this, just because I think it's for some reason more delicate. And as you can see, I did have another area that crumbled as I was unmolding. So yeah, there's not much I can do to fix that, because it's the pieces of that have literally crumbled. So it's not like I can glue it back together. So I'm gonna leave these to sweat out for a few minutes and come back to wet sand these. When you're making a terrazzo piece, you'd expect that you'd have to do some sanding, which is what reveals those chips. So I like to wet sand these. I'm just dabbing on some water, and I have my sanding block, which I find easy to use. And so I'm just adding more water, sanding away. I'm not being too rough with it, but I'm not being too delicate either, because you do want to take off that initial layer to reveal those shells. So I am happy with the sanding on this one. I'm going to give it a good wash, and that is what it looks like. It's still dirty, but yeah, my shells are revealed. Moving on to the Jesmonite, same way, I'm going to dab on some water and get sanding. Now, one thing I did notice as well is that it took me longer to sand away Resincrete than it did with Jesmonite. With Jesmonite, it was a lot easier to sand, and the shells did reveal themselves sooner. I have now given these a good wash, and this is the reveal. So this one you see is the Resincrete, and the other one is the Jesmonite piece. As you can see, it has that little dent in the corner. Let me know which of the two products you personally like to use. Like I said, I have switched to Resincrete for the reasons I've mentioned several times. But I thought this was a useful video just to do a like-for-like comparison of the two products. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.